Welcome to Sisters in Loss TV. I'm your host, Erica M. McAfee. And October is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month, a month dedicated to honoring and remembering our babies who have gone to heaven far too soon. I'm excited to present to you a series on surviving pregnancy loss. I know many of the stories you may hear may be triggering, so press pause, take a break, and come back to hear these powerful stories from sisters in loss who have survived pregnancy loss. So welcome to Surviving Pregnancy Loss. Thank you, Ray, for being with us.
Thank you for just allowing me this opportunity to speak to other mothers and other people that have dealt with loss. I'm really excited about this opportunity.
Awesome. So I would love for you to share a little bit about yourself and what you do.
So I was originally born in Mississippi, and then my family moved to East Tennessee. So I lived in Knoxville for a couple of years, but most of my childhood was spent in Morristown, Tennessee, which is about an hour outside of Knoxville. Graduated high school, participated in like sports growing up, participated in church, youth group, and activities like that. Was all involved with the athletic training program with my high school. And so I wanted to become an athletic trainer as my profession growing up. And so I came to North Carolina to study athletic training at Gardner-Webb University. Found out my first year that was not for me. So then I switched majors to religious studies and graduated with my religious studies degree. And then along the way, I found my husband and just moved along, stayed in the Shelby, North Carolina area. Got involved with the school system. I was a teacher assistant for 5 years. Then I became a teacher in special education for another 5 years. And now I've just recently kind of transitioned into the mental health field. I work at an adolescent treatment facility, and I help just the teenagers with their academic assignments while they're in treatment, so they don't get far behind on their academics.
Awesome. Thank you for taking us on that journey from, going from athletic training to religious studies to teaching. I think that God takes us on these journeys and it's all for a reason. So I would love for you to just take us back on your journey to motherhood and share with us your lost story.
Yeah, so I do have one son. He's older. He's 10 years old. So I had a C-section with that one. And then in 2016, that was when I had Trinity. Had her around Memorial Day weekend, and like my water broke. And so I'm like getting nervous, getting scared. And like, so I called my friend that's a paramedic. And she was like, you need to go to the hospital because if your water breaks, you're setting yourself for infection and things. So I went to the hospital, and I had a long laboring process. I was in labor with her for over 30 something hours. Me and my husband literally watched the whole Roots series during that time because that's how long it took. And so my parents were in Memphis and they came over to North Carolina and still no baby. But finally, around noon on Tuesday, she was finally born. Well, the first month was really good. Wasn't having any struggles or any, complications with anything. And then one day I was just wanting to take a shower. So I laid Trinity down for a nap, took the shower, and then right when I was getting out of the shower, God spoke to me and he was like, you will have another child. And I was like, okay, all right, wasn't even thinking or, anything crazy about it. I was like, okay, whatever. And then when I came back out of the shower after I was checking on her, like she wasn't breathing. She was very non-responsive and everything. So I tried CPR and I tried the breathing, but then like my brain froze and I couldn't remember all the rest of the steps of it and everything. And so then I'm like trying to call people to figure out what to do. Eventually my husband was calling me because he was at a church meeting and he was coming back to the house. And, I just kept telling him, I was like, come home, come home. And he was like, what's wrong? I was like, there's something wrong with Trinity. She's not breathing. I was like, it's just not going well right now. And so he came home and everything. And on his way home, he was talking to 911, talking to the paramedics. And also by that time, the paramedics had came to our house. They were trying to revive her and everything, but still no hope. No, they were only time they could get a heartbeat was like when they were doing the CPR and the compressions. And so eventually, we went to the hospital, and when we were in the waiting room, a nurse had came to us, and she was like, "It doesn't look good. Just want to prepare you guys for everything." And she's like, "Do you feel like you need a chaplain?" And the chaplain came in and was praying with us. By that time, some of the church members from church, they were, with us during this time, during that moment. And, eventually they pronounced my daughter Trinity dead. And so like just hearing that was like a shock and a blow, because I had never really experienced anything that traumatic and devastating. And so even just like calling my parents and letting them know and just letting other family members know, it was just like, yeah, it was just kind of hard to like even wrap my mind around it. And I know like after you hear those words, there's like a numbness that goes over you. They talk about how that's just kind of like the brain's natural way of like protecting itself. It's like an epidural, so you don't feel the shock of it. And like I was still like nursing her at this time, and so like just my body and my brain were not connecting the two. And so I was still like, producing milk. And like that was the thing I kept thinking about. I was like, what am I going to do with all this milk that's in my freezer right now? And luckily I talked to some other people about like how I could donate the breast milk and everything. And so there was a local hospital that I was able to donate my milk to, and they called me like a week or probably about a month or so after I had donated the milk, and told me that it helped a premature child to be able to eat for over a month. And so they told me that it was like 100 ounces. I was like, oh my gosh, that's like so amazing. And so it was just very nurturing and comforting that what I was able to give helped somebody else's child. And also during that time, I want to say it was like Hurricane Matthew had came through the North Carolina area, and I was able to donate some of the diapers and wipes that I was going to use for my baby or whatever. And I was glad to help somebody else because they were going through a big loss too. And like my child was able to help them transition during that time. So
Wow. So share with us, like, what happened those next few days? Did you all have a funeral or memorial service for her? Walk us through what happened after you left the hospital. What happened next?
So after that, we did have a funeral for her, and we planned a funeral service, especially for a child, because there's not a lot that you can really do. And then like, there's other technicalities with it, with autopsies and, police reports, because it was at the house, and all of these other agencies were involved. And like, for me during that moment, it was very overwhelming. I don't know why. I understand why like people, get emotional after somebody dies, because your brain is just trying to, survive each day and each moment. And so like when you're going through that, you're trying to plan this funeral arrangement, plan talking to the police department, get information from the hospital. And it kind of really got overwhelming. And then also during that time, you have family and friends coming over to the house, bringing food and everything. You're still just trying to function. And there were days I just really didn't, feel like I wanted to get out of bed, just because of the emotional toll that I was going through. And after we had the funeral and everything, like me and my husband spoke at the funeral, just because we felt, we're probably the only people that could really, speak to our daughter's life and everything. And our pastor gave like words of comfort, but at the same time, like I don't really remember what was really said at the funeral. I know that I sung, I know bits and pieces of what my husband said. I don't barely remember anything that my pastor said. And sometimes I'll try to like recollect on that day to find comfort, in that I lost a child, because it was just so traumatic and mind blowing. And to know that, I guess, a lot of people that I encounter on a day-to-day basis, they haven't experienced that either. So trying to find people that understood what I was going through was really hard. And to feel like, I was kind of lonely in this journey. But then a lot of people were encouraging me and saying, you have a strong faith in God, keep, praying and reading your scripture to, help ground your faith. So I still, was continuing to, go to church, even though there was sometimes I would have like so much anxiety, like Saturday night, that I wouldn't even want to go to church. And even just driving to church was even more like emotional for me. So, but yeah, so that was that journey.
Yes. So how were you all able to get an autopsy on Trinity, and really how did you navigate those next, that next year after her loss?
Yeah, so we did get an autopsy. So it was ruled SIDS. So then, that's still just an unknown thing or whatever. So yeah, and then just navigating after that, we did try again. So I'm not saying that me and my husband are really old, but we didn't want to wait too long, just because we wanted to, not replace Trinity, but just to fill another void that was in our hearts. So we did, against the counseling of our therapist and doctors, we went ahead and tried again. And within 3 months after the loss, we were expecting again. And it was very nerve-wracking, because like every time I went to the doctor, I was thinking something was wrong, or they would call me after the appointment. They're like, Miss Evans, we found this and you got to come to an extra appointment with this. And so that was getting very scary and nerve-wracking for me to just experience that. And so when we got to find out what the gender was, I was very nervous about finding out what the gender was, because I was like, I kind of didn't want another girl, just because I felt that, I just didn't want a girl, because I'm not a girly person. And, but we found out we were going to have another girl. So, and we were trying to think of names, and our pastor was like, you got to have like a name that has meaning. It has to have significance and everything. So we named our third child Serenity, joy, because we were hoping, we felt that God's presence was with us, and that the scripture says that he will bring us a comforter, and the comforter will bring us peace. And so that's what we felt that Serenity would bring to us. And her middle name is Joy. So that's one of the fruits of the spirits. Now, granted, we named her Peace and Joy, but she is definitely not that. She is like a hurricane wrapped in joy. So, but I mean, it's just awesome that how God really used this circumstance. And we can really see that, yes, we may have lost a child, but we still can let other people know that there is hope, and that you can survive it, and that you can be an encouragement to somebody else.
So how did you navigate this, the up until when you had your loss with Trinity? How far along were you then? How
Let's
far
see.
along was she? How far old was
Trinity died a month old,
she?
so she died. Yeah, so she died pretty early. So. But then, like, Serenity's birthday was getting near Trinity's death date. And so when I was going to my doctor's appointments, I was getting really nervous about that, because I live in a small town, and I knew I did not want to go to another hospital that's like an hour away. That's just not me. So I wanted to give myself, be easy and be gentle with myself, knowing that this was going to be another traumatic moment, and how to navigate that. So talking with the doctors, I was like, hey, my previous daughter's death date is coming up. I'm really freaking out. Can y'all really help me kind of navigate this? So we were able to schedule an induction the Sunday before the death date. And so again, I guess I just labor very long. So we started early Sunday morning, and still Serenity wasn't born until early Monday morning. And I was thinking, well, I got an epidural. The last time it worked out fine, but this time me and the epidural just didn't get along. It lowered my blood pressure. And so I started like passing out and everything. But the whole time, Serenity was good. They were like, she's fine. And I'm just like, I'm about to I felt like, I was almost dying or whatever. And then my water still wasn't breaking. Contractions were like really hurting, but they wouldn't up my dose because I passed out earlier. And I just remember like getting to the end of it and just feeling like, can y'all just cut me open? Just give me a C-section. Like, it's just be easier. And then doctor's like, you're almost there. And I was like, y'all have told me that like 5 times. Like, they're like, just one more push. I'm like, I cannot push no more. And so there was one, like when it really was the last final time, she was like, this is the last push. You were almost there. Come on, you got it. You can do it. And so I gave out that push and everything. And Serenity came, and she was just looking around like, hello world. I'm ready. I'm ready to run this world. And she's been running ever since. So yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Yes.
So how have you been doing with COVID-19? How has your family been doing? How have you been navigating it?
Yeah, so COVID-19 brought up like some more grief trauma for me, because I think because I kept hearing so much about death, it just kept bringing that back up for me. Excuse me. So that was just been kind of hard to navigate. And then like our family, we've been doing pretty well. So as a teacher, this has been kind of a different time because, education has kind of shifted into more of the digital paradigm and everything. So that's been, just my work has changed a little bit. And then just not being able to attend church like physically. Yes, I've always enjoyed having church online, but just not to be with my church family has been difficult, because I've realized that that's how I get my community, being around other African Americans, and being that I don't have regular interactions with African Americans during the week. That's definitely been hard because of all the other racial things that have gone on in the past few months. It's been kind of hard to just really feel like connected to my culture and to my race. So that's just been a little different. So
I agree. I think that's the biggest thing.
yeah, I was hesitant to mentioning that, but it
No,
really has affected
no,
me like so
absolutely.
much, because when you're the minority everywhere you go, and church was actually the place where I felt like I really belonged, and to not have that right now has just been, like everybody was like, yeah, we're the church, you shouldn't have to worry about that. But the reason that we come together is so we can feel community and feel, like we belong. So, and that's what we're missing with the digital interaction. So
Absolutely. I think that's the biggest thing, especially for us churchgoers who
mhm.
typically go on a consistent basis,
Right.
to not be able to see people. Oh, you can see them online, but it's just still something about that in-person connection
Hmm.
in the church house, hearing those old school hymns.
Right.
It just puts you back in a place.
Right.
I want to say that I felt a sense of community, even or just when Congressman John Lewis had passed away,
Right.
and I was watching his funeral back, and
Hmm.
I was like, oh my gosh, I missed this. Like I missed you.
Right. Right. Yes.
Like I'm
I
at a
have missed
funeral.
that.
Like why am I crying? I missed this. Like
Yes. Yes. I totally agree with you. Like I cannot wait to like get back into the sanctuary and just be able to praise God and just
yeah.
worship. So yeah.
Absolutely. I think it has changed our mindsets on just how we worship too,
Right.
worshiping collectively in our households, let alone
Hmm.
as we do come back together. But the sense of community is needed in general. Like we need to touch and feel and hold
Right.
and hug and love on each other. Not just virtually, but definitely in person as well. So that is one thing I'm definitely looking forward to, getting back
Yes.
into that space.
Yes.
So I would love for you to share. You mentioned in your story about, Serenity and Trinity's birth date and death dates being almost around the same time. How do you honor and celebrate Trinity? Do you celebrate her birth date and her death date? How do you memorialize her on an annual basis so people know that she was here, that she existed, that that we keep her name up and around things? How do you honor her in that way?
Well, one of our church members donated a tree to us. And so each year we kind of gather around that tree to honor and memorialize Trinity. But also, I have a special Mother's Day loss program that I do at my church every year. So I gather other mothers in my community that have lost a child, either like a baby or like we've even had like some that have lost adult children. And we come together every year just to support each other around Mother's Day because that's one of the hardest days of the year for us. And so that kind of helps me stay a little grounded and not focus so much on the loss, but then just actually connecting with my community because May is a really big month for me. My anniversary is that month, my Mother's Day that month, and then Trinity's birthday is at the end of the month. And so, like, I mean, God really provides a way to bring me comfort during that time. Like last year, I was able to go on a spiritual retreat with my church. And so like I had the comfort of my church family there and I was like, y'all, I'm probably going to cry this weekend. So and they're like, it's okay. We're here to support you. So, I mean, just having that community has been very good too. So, but sometimes it definitely does like overtake me. So I've just kind of learned to like really focus on my breathing and to like, think about the month I did have with Trinity. And one of the things that one of my friends told me is she was like, I know, she was only with us for a month, but I know you were the best mother that you could be for that month. And so I keep thinking about those affirmations to give me comfort during that time. Yep.
Yes, I love that. I absolutely love that. Being able to give yourself and speak life over yourself through affirmations to give you some comfort
Mhm.
throughout any of those dark times that you are feeling
Yes.
now. So,
Yes.
how are you surviving loss? How are you surviving child loss, infant loss? This has been a season.
Right. So, I mean, the first year, probably first, probably 2 years, I did not do very well with it. I was like really deep and low in anxiety and depression. I went to therapy every 2 weeks because I just had a lot of guilt and I felt like a lot of shame because of the loss. And it took me a long time to like actually really get through it. And so even when Serenity was about to turn 1, like I literally stayed up all night looking at her crib to make sure that she would make it to 1. And so I had to learn to trust God because he would just keep saying, "Do you trust me?" I'm like, "I trust you," but then I would, sit and stare at Serenity for forever, to make sure she was still breathing, or sometimes he would kind of give me little pop quizzes, which I'm going to call them, like, I would just get freaked out and scared because of those instances or whatever. And the thing about it was like, even like before Trinity died, I had a vision of, or I had a dream about like I was at a funeral home and I was looking at a casket, and like I knew it wasn't my son's casket. It was just a little too small for that, and I knew it wasn't my husband. And then to realize that that's actually what played out and everything. And sometimes that memory comes back of just looking at my child in the casket, and because Trinity and Serenity look just a little bit alike, sometimes that memory comes back, and just having to like stop and think like, okay, that is in the past. You have moved on from it. It's okay that that has happened. You are going to remember it. It's okay. But to know not to dwell on it too long and learn how to respond to it better instead of in a negative way, but to respond to it in a positive way. That's what's really kind of helped me. And, still just going to church kind of helped me. But then sometimes it felt like some of the phrases that, preachers were saying kind of hurt me too during that time. And I'm thinking like all my life, church has been like the place of comfort for me. And during that time, sometimes it didn't feel like that. And that was like discombobulation, because it's like, this has always worked for me. So why is it not working now? And I remember like there was this one service that I had went to, and the pastor had said, like, because the lady had faith, she prayed and her son, came back alive. And I was just like, so what you're saying is I didn't have faith? Because I was like, I did pray, but my answer to my prayer turned out a different way. And so just learning how to navigate, when people say things, because they haven't experienced it also. They don't know how to interact with those people. And then sometimes I have to learn how to forgive them for the words that they say, because they don't understand it. And I've talked to many pastors and preachers and ministers, and they're saying like after they have lost a child, like it changes the way that they minister to people, because it's something that, not many people go through. And so you learn how to have more empathy, and you learn how not to just, speak certain phrases. And, I know Brene Brown says that when you feel empathy, you don't just say, well, at least, that doesn't show that you're showing empathy. And so just being involved with people's presence has helped. And then eventually, like it took a long time, but I had like a breakout moment during church one day. I was introducing the speaker, and then the next thing I know, I just started praising God, and like that weight of like all the shame and all the guilt and all the pain that I was carrying, like it literally lifted off of me. And it was just such an awesome experience, because like to me, I really shouldn't have been carrying that weight, because I felt like I just wanted to carry it just so I know how it felt. But eventually it was like, you shouldn't be carrying this anymore. And then I guess some words that really helped me was like, you have to release that pain of the grief. But like, just because you release that pain doesn't mean that it releases the love that you have for that child. And I think that's why people have a hard time of letting go, because they feel like if they're letting go of the pain, they're letting go of the memory of their child. And that's not true, because there's two different entities there. So, but yeah, I struggled the first 2 years, but after that, and after I realized that God is the ultimate healer of everything, life has been so much better since.
No, oh, I love what you just said about you going, as God really worked with you in church, where you had to release it in church through praise. Like who,
Mm-hmm.
the things that we think about, praising God, in advance, praising God through our
Right.
pain, just
Right.
to get to that next side. That
Right.
is a deeper level of healing and with your faith.
Right. Yeah, because like I remember there was one Sunday, I danced on the dance team or whatever, and we had just got through dancing to Put a Praise on It. And like I was just all emotional. I was in it, da 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 da. And then the sermon was about Hannah and how, she prayed for a child. And I was just like, oh, I can't do this right now. And so like I had to leave the service, and my husband's like, you should have stayed. She offered hope. She offered encouragement. I was just like, I couldn't do it that way. But to know eventually, my heart and my head connected, and, I was able to hear it. But sometimes I think that's what is, our struggle is, just getting our heart and the head to say the same thing, because there's a disconnect sometimes. So
No, absolutely. I think that is a huge disconnect, and it's the reason why people stay stuck in certain parts of their grief journey,
right.
where they don't allow outside resources, whether it's therapy, whether it's really
Right.
going back to church and really asking God those hard questions because he
Right.
can handle them, you know,
Right.
and then getting to the point of praising through the pain and releasing it. Girl, you just set
Yes.
somebody free.
Yes, release it. You just
Release
have to release
it.
it. And
Yeah, release
like you just
it.
said, God really can handle it. He wants us to be able to give it to him. He is the ultimate burden bearer, and like he died for us because of that. He knew a long time ago that we were going to go through this. He knew that we were going to experience child loss, but then he also knew who we were going to help, who also would need this word, who also would need this encouragement. So yeah, so your breakthrough, is you might be hindering somebody else's breakthrough if you don't get your own. So
Child, that's
sorry, I preached a message today, so it's still on me.
now
Sorry.
that part right there. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
So we'll
Listen,
see, probably in, yeah. So May 2019, I announced my calling into ministry, and I did it on Mother's Day. And so luckily my pastor was very empathetic. He's like, I know this is gonna be a hard day for you. So, but I think you need to do it on Mother's Day. And so I announced my calling in church and everything. And it's been a struggle just to get to the point of being able to be used in ministry, and to know that, I guess sometimes you feel like you're just a little poor old soul and nobody's going to listen to you, and you don't have good words to say and everything, but to know that just a little bit of encouragement helps people along the way. And so in December of last year, I did my initial sermon to announce my call in the ministry. And then, so last Monday, I had a recorder sermon. And so it aired today, this morning. So yeah, so just to know that, I hate that, I had to lose a child to experience this, but, I've learned so much about myself. I've had so much more confidence and so much more boldness before. And before, Trinity died, like everybody just thought, I was like really cocky and, but I was like, I just always have been really confident in myself. And so when, things happen, I just keep going with it. And to know now people understand, like, oh yeah, now we understand why you do things the way you do, because you have to just keep pushing, because somebody needs a word. Anywhere you go, somebody needs a word.
somebody does need a word. And I'm thankful that God has called you because he's equipped you. And now you are called to do his work by preaching the gospel wherever you go. And I'm just so grateful that we were able to connect. So where can our listeners or the viewers connect with you after this?
So I am on Facebook, Rhea Evans, on Facebook. And then I also, I actually do arts and crafts. So I make t-shirts, coffee mugs. I just do a lot of arts and crafts. And that's kind of another way that I kind of helped in my healing journey, was to craft. I always say he turned my morning into crafting and dancing. And so I do have a business design, Blessed Trinity Designs. I'm on Facebook and Shopify. So Shopify, yes. So, yeah.
Thank you. And I'll make sure we link all of those in the show notes or the description box. But thank you so much, Ray, for sharing your surviving loss story with us. It's been a blessing.
Thank you.